Hi, this is the Timex Sinclair online user group. It is Sunday, March 19th, 2023. We have Claudius with us, who is going to talk about a project that he did to recreate the Timex Computer 2048, maybe 2068. Claudius will correct me on that in a second, I'm sure, which also involved recreating at the SCLD, which is sort of the magic chip inside the 2048 and 68. He did it in a FPGA. So we'll talk to Claudius for a bit, and then we'll have some open time to chat amongst ourselves, I suspect. And we'll have plenty of time, I think, to ask Claudius questions. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Claudius.
Okay, thank you, David, for the invitation. As you mentioned, yes, I will be flipping a bit between some screens and as well different camera. Let's start from the beginning and show you the beast in the flesh. Ah, yes, a blurry screen.
That looks 80s. Oh, no, that's high res there.
So, yes, that one is a Timex Computer 2048, what was manufactured by Timex Portugal. To be honest, it was the first machine what I ever had. So I had it in around 1986 till the beginning of 1991 or 1992 when I moved to the secondary school. And why those projects generally started, as everything started with this machine, because I broke it when I was younger, because there was idea about upgrading to 80 kilobytes of RAM, what was published one of the Polish magazine at the time. Of course, I was young, not experienced, so I broke it, definitely. This is a different machine, what I purchased generally for this project. So after the years, I dig out in my parents' house in the loft, my original Timex Computer 2048, and I repair it, and now it's perfectly working. However, always I wanted to have a Timex what of 80K of RAM instead of having 48K of RAM. Generally, the information what you have for your Timex Sinclairs are quite good quality, like schematic diagrams, manuals, and as well the technical manual, what is brilliant. Most of the information what we have in Europe have been lost over the years. Nothing is really easy available, or when you have a horrible scans, what you can't read anything from those. A couple of years ago, one of the Polish group Speki.pl rewrote from the scratches the schematic. It's now currently available in quite good quality. It was checked even by me when I did the clone creation, and now it's really readable and it can be used for the service and so on. So that one was a starting point. However, for you, as you can see, the computer looks like any Timex, so it's very familiar, very similar to Timex Sinclair 2068. Timex Sinclair 2068 in Europe was Timex Computer 2068. However, we've got a slightly different redesign because your machines, they are NTSC, we have PAL. And as well, the extension port, what we've got TS2068, we've got, it's more similar to ZX81 or Timex Sinclair 1000, Timex Sinclair 1500. Those what was done in Europe was more compatible with the ZX Spectrum. So especially this machine, the Timex Computer 2048, the extension port is exactly the same. It's nearly exactly the same what is seen on the Spectrum and can share all the peripherals what was available. How it's look internally. Don't be surprised because this machine has been abused for years, so that one is not complete one. General setup for who is not fully familiar with, of course, we have the power supply section, quite large, what generates 5 volts and 12 volts. Those 4 chips, they are upper RAM. Those 2 chips are making the video RAM. Here it should be just a buffer for the data line. And now we are coming to the joystick port, what is a Kempstone type, because on larger machines, even Timex Computer 2048, joysticks available there, they are not compatible with anything except Timex. So there are not many games what can be played with. So on this machine, everything was done to be 99.9 compatible with ZX Spectrum. Of course, we have RAM, what was ZX Spectrum ROM, which was modified to reset the additional ports, what are embedded in SCLDs. Z80 processor, some multiplexers, those resistors are on the address bus. What is missing here is SCLD chip, what I have somewhere. That one is a broken one. And we have as well the section about the video circularity, all the analogs, and as well ear port, and as well mic port, and the joystick port. However, I said there is a joystick port. However, this joystick port got a different polarity what Atari joystick got. So you're not shorting to the ground, you're shorting to the positive. So any joystick with auto fire, they didn't work properly on those machines. And of course, having the buffers on the data line and the address line possibly make a lot of havoc with the compatibility with some software and some hardware, because you couldn't directly inject anything on the CPU side of the data line when the data line was held by SCLD or ULA, other terms, in the different state. Of course, we had as well the composite video output, and we have the modulator there. So that one was a starting point. And I haven't created a SCLD replacement. It was created by Mark Smith. It's the same person who did the ULA design from ZX Spectrum. It's a whole range, what they're called SLAMs. So it's SLAM 48, SLAM 128K. And end of the 2020, Mark contacted me because he started working on the SCLD replacement for his broken Timex Computer 2068. Because he was looking for the information how the management memory unit works in the Timex Sinclair 2068, and as well how the other ports have been embedded. So we went through all the manuals, what were available. We had the numbers of the email exchanges, discussions, how they possibly could be done. And of course, the pinout of this chip is completely different what you can find on the TS2000 SCLD. The main differences as well, because from what you can find in the American Timex, you have as well RGB output, and as well you have a differential output for the video. On that one is only RGB, pure, nothing else. Of course, this SCLD can generate as well NTSC, because it's universal. There are a few jumpers. One is on this side, other is there. It's here, and the other is there, down there. What can be soldered and switch the chip to generate 60 Hertz image. Of course, as well the both of the crystal oscillator need to be replaced to match whatever you wish. Because the idea was from Timex to make it universal and as well selling in the South America. What never happens, I believe. So that one was a basis, and as well one of my friends sent me another interesting piece of thing, what was completely stripped down the board for the same computer. So when Mark decided to build the SCLD for himself, so I hit the bullet and decided, yeah, let's go and make the clone of this board, what will be fitting inside the Timex Timex Computer 2048 case, using the same connectors in the same places exactly. So it's having the power switch, the power supply, composite video. Of course, I removed completely the modulator because there's no point these days have it. Having a joystick ports there and having as well the, tape recorder input and output. So what I told, really, I did. So I take it out. So this board was designed with a few additional features. Layout, you can see it's nearly the same. Of course, it's a major change. It's a middle section, what we'll be talking in a second. But generally, what we have in this board, we have still power supply, what is much smaller, because I use a different PAL encoder. There is no need of 12 volts anymore. Z80 processor, I reduced the numbers of the upper RAM chips to 2, because I use 4 bits 64K memory chips. Video RAM, as it was, the same what was previously. Still, I have buffers for the data line, data bus, and as well the address bus. Standard, the connector for keyboard. Still, there is output for the composite video. This one is RGB output and as well audio output. The encoder, what I use, it's a standard AD724JR. What is quite popular is only one SMD components in this board. There are a few changes on this side. So still is a Capstone port, joystick port. However, they changed the polarity, what is expected from Atari. So any joystick what is used with Atari Commodores can be used with this. One additional feature is what I added already the PSG chip, what is equivalent to AY38910. It's one of the clones which are available still. I will talk about the remaining two things in a minute. And of course, there is still the transistor to mixing as well the beeper, what is included, and as well AY chip sound to the speaker, but I never installed the speaker there. So, and that one is the replacement of SCLD. I will speak in a second because I start from the beginning why it's so large, because that one is quite easily detachable. Can be soldered to the board. However, that one I can remove anytime. So it's as well already on the pin headers. However, the whole issue was to fit it inside the case. If you use the standard pin headers, they were too high. There are a few additional changes to this board because it's my working machine. I'm trying a number of the things with those. The first thing, as I said, I wanted the computer would always have as well the 80 kilobytes of RAM. So if this section is making the logic, what can be switched on or switch off, and as well as using port 255 when it's enabled. Those LEDs are showing which bank of 32K upper RAM is used, because effectively it's a switching of the whole upper memory, just in the chunks of 32Ks. So that one as well, when that one worked, so let's go any further, because I'm tired with the finding any additional piece of the equipment when I want to load the game, or when I load to even the short demo. Yes, we have div MMCs, what are brilliant. However, you need as well the PC on the side. I know the loading from the current mobile phones is as well not reliable, because the current these days mobile phones got a very low sound output. It's effectively to protect our ears. So the next thing was, why not to use just a Bluetooth device? That one is a $2 Bluetooth module what you can buy in China, for example. So I can load directly from my mobile using app what is Play TZX, probably the name. When you have the whole library of the ZX Spectrum, different things, you can effectively tap a couple of the things and you can load up as using the a tape recorder. And of course, you can use your own files. In these days, everybody's got a smartphone, so there is no issues. This additional small thing, because AY chips, they've got as well the additional ports. So that one, it's still in the prototyping. I would like to make kind of the USB connector directly to the PC. So that one will be acting as a serial universal adapter. That one will be converted to the USB, connect directly to the PC, because there is a few pieces of the software which can be used to load the or exchange the information between the Timex or the Sinclair or the Spectrums with the PC. Okay, fine. So that one is the clone. So you can see SCLD is already there. I have another board. What is another experimental board? So it's plenty of the wires. As you can see, that one is a fully working Timex, used to be fully working Timex 2048 with a faulty SCLD. So this SCLD replacement is effectively working as well in the real Timex machine. It's not just made for my clone. It was made effectively for the Timexes. The whole difficulties with the designing of SCLD, I show on the one strip board, is the size of the chip, because it's enclosed in PLCC 68. In the Timex board, there is no socket typically. Everything is soldered directly to the board. Of course, if you take out the faulty chip, you can fit the socket there quite nicely. So brilliant. However, it's not the best case and the enclosure for any logic to be replicated these days. It's not like we're using the through-hole components. It's quite easily to put the pin headers and do something. With that one, really, there is nothing what we can attach to. And the soldering to any Timex board is a nightmare. If you're not careful with the heat gun or the soldering iron, you are rolling all the tracks quite easily. So on this board is already, as you can see, numbers of the tracks are broken already. So what Mark did, Mark sent me, he did the whole implementation is in CPLD, index Xilinx type, using 144 macro cells. However, he struggled with the space there. And he designed something what is effectively the size, what can fit quite nicely there. That one is already redesigned using the Intel CPLDs. However, we need to remember the SCLD or ULAs, they are not purely digital one. There's as well the section which is analog one, like a tape inputs, like the video outputs, like the tape output as well, because it's generating as well the sound. And SCLD can't do this. So, and these days, it's as well very difficult to buy SCLDs which can handle the 5 volts logic, because everybody going down with them trying to make the chip smaller, more efficient. So even these days, 1.2 volts is maximum with tolerance up to 3.3 volts. So the selection is not easy, and as well the chips are not available so easily. And these days, 2 years later, buying any of these chips is like 6 months lead time, and the cost is over. Recently, I've checked in one of the decent reseller about $60 per chip. So it's just for CPLD. Where is the rest? So it's this board was, I can show you. So everything was hidden underneath. So all the additional bits and bobs, they are underneath. And if we compare, they're exactly the same size. If you if you use a brute force, probably can fit inside, but it's not the whole purpose of using it. They should be replaceable in the future, because we don't know what happens in a couple of years. We don't know, we want to just a replacement. So what I started doing a slightly larger board. So I have another. So that one is, as you can see, it's development board. Still, it's a space for if someone got the original one, because the board was designed as a direct replacement. So if someone got the board what is in very poor condition due to, for example, luckily replacement of the video RAM on the upper RAM, or was a massive fault in the supply section, or there was something wrong with the video section, to make even, I left the reference of the components the same as in original Timex Computer 2048. So someone can salvage as much as practically possible from the original board and put exactly for the same places when they can find it there. I built 2 of those using original chips, and I know they are working. There's about 5 in the world currently working. However, how to make it replaceable? So I made the whole connections on the side, what can be pin headers. That one is one of the early prototypes, and they can fit quite easily. And you can take it out, because numbers of the times when I did something with them, it was taking, or even living here, reprogramming, doing again, fault checking. Probably there were about 3 or 4 different designs of the boards. That one is as well, you can see it's a number still of the mistake that was there. So finally, I end up with something like this. And of course, always you can cut off the wings using the very dense pin headers, what they are the holes on the round. They are still can be soldered to the original board if it needed. But to be honest, it's a pain in the back to do so. I did this twice and I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Of course, if someone wants, yes, can do such. And of course, I changed some of the components layout underneath, so it's much smaller, much dense. The latest board, what I have, even I went slightly farther, so because there can be standard pin headers with 100 mils spacing. There is as well the space for the pin headers what are 50 mils. And as well, if someone wants still the PLC socket. The whole board was done as a project. Generally, I don't like this word, that's why hobby. And as well around 2021. At the same year, the Polish community of the Spectrum users celebrate 10 years of the existence, and as well the forum. Name was taken as well from one of the demos, what was made by the Polish group around the 30th anniversary of the Timex 2048. I spoke with the graphic designer, so as well I can use it on the board as the logo. So it's as well the name, Estimi. And I've been thinking even to modify this board to having the full 128K RAM. However, to leave the compatibility with the older chip is not the easiest one. There is a space. I have a few ideas how to do so. I spoke with the guy who did in the past, in the 90s, what he redesigned some logic around the original SCLD. I've got the full compatibility with Spectrum 128K toast track. However, that one is not going as expected because some information probably is lost. Still, this pin header is, sorry, it's quite universal, as well described. So there are 4 digital line from the PSG chip I taken away there. There is a power supply, so there could be connection of anything. I've been thinking now about Wi-Fi, because as well there are few projects associated with Spectrum using ESP12 to make a small board and try to use it with the as well the some of the Wi-Fi features. As I said, that one is only, the PAL encoder is only one SMD components on the board. The rest I've been trying, even those subboards, got the space for the pin headers for the easy attaching and taking this away. So I think that one is very short.
That is really, really cool, Claudius. I mean, that's just amazing what you've done there.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hi. You add more extra RAM size. Really appreciate your work. Is really amazing. It's difficult because in my case, I live in Argentina. We maybe had the same problems like you with the respect the documentation. It's not easy to find, and I understand you perfectly to do this. Okay, to do this job. My question is, the port FF on the 2048, I have one of that machine, is used by the logic because the external extended resolution mode is using for the lower bits of the port FF. I don't know how you use the empty bits to address the 2 bits upper direction in the memory using this port.
Yes, there was the whole article in one of the Polish magazines in the end of the 80s. To be honest, I don't remember the details when I did the design, but there is one command, first of all, to switch the whole chunk of the 32 kilobytes in the upper RAM. You need to lower the RAM top to be on the edge of this video RAM. And later on, sending the commands out 255 semicolon 64, if I'm correct, is already switching to the second chunk. And later on, you can lift up the RAM top back. So you have still, it's always the 48K machines with switchable 32Ks on the top, and that's it. Yes, it's using the port FF, and as well SCLD. You've got all the features. It's not only because Timex Computer 2048, it's a ZX Spectrum. So with this additional graphic modes, nothing else is used. So there is no requirements about the switching the port 244. There is nothing related to the AY chip. However, still this SCLD got this feature. However, as a standard feature, this SCLD is working with PSG chip on ZX Spectrum 128K ports. So if you load up any game or any demo which use just a standard Spectrum ports for the generation of the sound, yes, it will behave on the outputs. So it behave as a ZX Spectrum with attached already the AY chip on the edge connector.
This is the Spectrum 128 made by Timex. Because
yes,
yeah.
but there is as well those two features. What are there? I can switch it back to the full Timex compatibility. There is one thing what Mark and as well later me slightly playing with the even VHDL code due to the size of the SCLD, because the limitation is as well effectively the space. That one shows better. We can't fit anything larger than 100 pin QFP. They are larger with 144, but however, they're eating much more space and there is really no way to fit it. So we couldn't generate the interrupts exactly how the Timex did, because the Timex timing, even the European one, are slightly different to ZX Spectrum, especially with the timing of generating interrupts. There is about 16 CPU tacts difference but that one is not implemented in this chip due to the limitation of the macro cells which are available. Because it's not only the those, it's as well how to assign all the pins externally and wire the out. So we could fit them in. However, whatever we need on this side were already on the chip on the that side. With the size of the board, this small board, bear in mind, is only 2-layer board. It's not a 4-layer.
Yes, no, great, really great work. I have a really hardware-ish question. If you gain access to the port FF or the port FE or any port that addressing inside the SCLD, or in your case, this chip, the 3-state buffer is enabled or not? Because when you try to access at the video memory, the SCLD put in 3-state or separate the C80 bus with respect to the memory, the lower part of the memory. And in the case that you gain access to the IO port at the same time, you stop the clock like SCLD do. The question is, in the port that is not defined, you stop the clock or not in this address?
It's the same how the Sinclair, to be honest. This is a good question to Mark, not to me, because he's the whole architect. But what I can tell you, yes, I know, because using those buffers, it's a pain in the back when you want to do a few tricks, what you can do with ZX Spectrum. You can't do this on the Timex. So already, it's especially when the SCLD is talking to port FE, like reading something from the keyboard or trying to load the game. To make the, for example, making the external Bluetooth device, I did this, and I spent even a couple nights back trying to figure out why I can't load via the edge connector. And the issue is generally because it's a buffer. So when port FE is called by ROM and as well by the CPU, SCLD is taking a presence and as well the switching off the direction how the data can flow and that's on the data bus. The only way is generally take out the buffer and put the resistors there.
Yes, no, I know, because it's a hardware issue. All the Timex has this. It's not a problem, it's a design.
It's how the design. The design is brilliant. However, that one is making some of the hardware hard to work on the not modified Timex.
Right, correct. Really, really good job. Again, it's amazing.
Thank you.
So, Claudius, the 2048 is really sort of a very much a mishmash of the Spectrum and the Timex design. I mean, because the layout on the backside is very Spectrum-y with the power connector on the right hand side, for instance. What? Yeah. I mean, what's the level of compatibility with the Spectrum with like the original 2048?
There are few things which can't work correctly. However, it was around 99%.
Okay. Wow.
It was very high because, as I said, generally those buffers, when especially on the address bus, it's not an issue generally. On the data bus, there was a main issue.
Yeah.
If you remove them and you put just a resistors across, typically there was an easy way to do so. The rest, if they remove them, there will be 99.9. Because ROM is exactly the same like Sinclair ROM, plus additional 6 bytes to reset at the beginning the port 25 FE. The reason why, because the original ULA from Sinclair got as well the input for the reset. On that one, on SCLD, especially the Portuguese one, there is no input for reset because all the pins are used anyway. So when you install just a normal Spectrum ROM, you don't know in which graphic mode the machine can be boot up.
Oh, right.
So the first thing what the ROM is doing is, as far as I remember, disabling interrupts, going down to the memory checks. When this memory check is done, it's automatically as well descending out 2550 and effectively resetting the F port here.
And I'm curious about your AY compatible chip there. What can you talk a little bit about that? Where does that?
You're talking, that one is a file company. You can buy them as well from the Windbond, and you can find them from KCF. I have, and after as well Yamaha.
Okay.
All of them, Yamaha is slightly different, but the orders they used to be in the flippers and the arcade machines.
Yes.
Even they were made recently, about 5 years ago. So you can buy the brand new ones from the fraction, and definitely they are not fake ones, what typically you can buy these days from China.
Wow.
Yes, it's 80, it's the version 10. It's a full port, it's 2 port, the different
Yeah.
that we use in the 2068 is single port, use some signals. For example, in the Timex use the IO address 7 and in IO address low for the joystick. In this case, you have 2 ports, you can add a printer or another peripheral for communication. It's, yeah, just is a nice standard, like a General Instrument do in the 80s.
And this machine, so effectively those what I did this is like you have in the large Timexes, what you can find is the same, using the same IOs on this chip. So even the software what is written for Sinclair, it works, but I haven't fully tested this extension yet.
Neat. Hey, if you guys have questions, you want to raise your hand just so I can see, because I can only see 5 folks at once. I have no idea if anybody's just itching to ask Claudius
And
questions.
I show you one thing, especially another. What I did, because as I said, the replacement of this SCLD is a pain in the back. As well, I did the template, how to fit the kind of the pin headers, SMD type. I have them as well. So first of all, if you want to fit this chip, what is on the pin headers, yes. However, how to solder everything on the SMD. So it's really, really hard. So I bought the numbers of the types of the 50 mils, the pin headers, female and male, and as well tried the different designs. Even I redesigned the boards, the size of the board, moving something like the 50 mils to effectively fit the soldering iron inside. And that's why I made the special frame, what you can use to effectively put the pin headers around and position wherever you wish, and as well solder from the inside.
Hey, Jeff, you had
I used it once.
You used it once.
I used it once and I said, well, someone asked how many of those were built. Not many. Yes, the board itself, the design is available on the GitHub. However, the issue is mainly with SCLD because it's a license by Mark. To be honest, I don't run any business to make those replacements. I have some discussions. I had some discussions with Mark. Much appreciated his work. I have some. I can do something, but generally, as a replacement, someone asked me, I have a faulty one. What you can do for me? It's not like I'm not doing this in the large scale to sell it, because it's not my work. It's Mark's work. He is a license holder, and I want to keep it that way. If someone wants to make those chips, yes, please speak with Mark. I can be able to help with the PCB design, for example, if someone wants. However, these days, these Alteras are obsolete products. Maybe moving to FPGA, however, how to fit on those as well all the buffers needed between the 5 volts word with the low voltage ETL.
Yes, maybe in the next, I don't know, next step, to create a new board with 3.3 voltage in the all the board, use no translation and use FPGA with 3.3 and only put a converter on the bus to externally peripheral. That's it. It's easy to simplify the board design.
Yes, but to be honest, I was even thinking about like fitting the buffers around, but this board need to be changed from 2 layers board to 4 layers board, what already increasing the costs. Well, there are a few ways to do so, or forget about those and make like one of this person super for it, make it in the discrete chips like Harlequin. It's the design. It's design in the world. I can show you. I can show you. 1 second, please.
Yeah, don't forget, guys. I mean, we need to.
Yep.
The hierarchy that was, you know, the Timex Computer 2068 came out first, right? And that was, you know, Portugal's reimagining of the, you know, the Timex Sinclair 2068. So they did redo the SCLD. You know, it's unique to the 2068, but the 2048 uses the same SCLD, right? So it has the video modes, but it can't do bank switching. You're not like the, you know, the Timex Sinclair 2068 envisioned it, right? And of course it doesn't have, well, the original 2048 computer didn't have the sound chip, right? It was really meant to be a spectrum, you know, a revisioning of the spectrum is what the 2048 was supposed to be, right? But it still used the 2068's SCLD. So, you know, what Claudius is doing here, you know, obviously he's added the sound chip back in, right? And added some extra functionality there with, you know, the Bluetooth and the, you know, using that IO port that's on the sound chip to do something else, right? Whereas on the Timex Sinclair 2068, you know, that IO port is used for the 2 joystick ports, right? That's how we get to read the joystick ports on the you know, the TS2068. So, and yeah, showing here is the Harlequin, which is obviously everything done in discrete logic, right? There's no ULA at all on the Harlequin.
Yes, but you can compare now the size because it was done as well to fit the Timex Computer 2048, the case. As you can see, I was not able to fit it in the same size of the board.
Another inch, yeah.
And
Yeah,
that one makes already the issues with the fitting inside the original case, because those chips probably to be soldered directly to the board.
Yes, and also
Timex,
the route is incredible to connect all the pins in this board. It's crazy. And the solution for the FPGA is better, it's clear, it's a new design. Yeah, the only problem is if you think to work in 3.3 voltage, that's great. Because the Arlequin is all design of the Timex or the Spectrum, the original Spectrum.
but
What else?
Hey guys, Jeff, you had a question earlier?
Yeah, Claudius, I just wanted to know who fabricates your blank main board and how much does it cost?
So the boards are made in China these days. Everybody is making in China. So you can find a few fabrication facilities. So the cost of this empty board, I don't remember now because this board I made about 1.5 years ago, the last batch. But let's say the board itself is about $20. Plus, of course, that one include the shipment, but on top of it is as well the import duties, all the custom duties, what I need to pay in the UK. Of course, you can make it much cheaper. You can make it as well, the shipment much cheaper, but I don't want to wait another 6 or 8 weeks. I prefer to have it something, let's say, in 2 weeks' time. So I'm paying a premium for DHL delivery.
And that's a 2-layer board you're looking at right there, right?
Yes.
Claudius? Okay. So there is American one, American PCB make, Osh Park, right? Osh Park, OSH Park,
Yep.
they're here in the US. So, if you could get the Gerbers and all that kind of stuff, they may be able to make it. I mean, it's no big deal that JLC PCB or even PCBWay makes it, but if you wanted to get something here in America, they certainly.
Yeah, my experience both professionally and with hobby is that US PCB makers are almost an order of magnitude more expensive than China.
Yeah, Osh Park's not too bad. Check them out. I mean, I've used them for a couple of things, but yeah, my default is generally like actually JLC PCB. So
Adam, you have a question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Claudius. So I was looking at your Harlequin. Now that's a different Harlequin. So is it like a combination between your Timmy board and the Harlequin board? Is that kind of what that is?
That one is a design of the Harlequin, what Don Superford did. Effectively, he designed as well the Timex in the Harlequin in this size of the board, what can fit this ZX Spectrum case. I have a board from Don, and I spoke with him, so I recreated this as well, which can be fitted in the original Timex case. Of course, probably the Timex Computer 2048 would be the better place because the board is much larger, but as well the cost will be much larger. That one is just a prototype. It was tested. I found a few issues with I did the layout wrongly, and as well a few connections wrongly. So that one is still under development. But generally, yes, it's a Harlequin with having the Timex modes.
Thank you.
Interesting.
But of course, there is nothing related to the MMU. So it's just the graphics are embedded, because if you would like to additional things, probably another row of the discrete logic will be needed down there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like going to 3.3 volt or even lower logic, I don't know if there's any Z80 equivalents out there that run at that. And also, if you have the sound chip, I don't think, is there a sound chip that does the AY, the 8910 that's 3.3 volt part? There's sections I think in there that you can't really get a lower voltage replacement for, right? And so that would really kind of, you don't want to have level shifters for all of that stuff.
Well, Carl, the FPGA I am working with has the memory and enough logic resources so that if you wanted to have a 3.3 volt bus, you could basically put it all in one chip, AY, video, the whole smash.
Right.
Possibly you can use just ESP12, and you can put the whole Timex in the one chip, what got already VGA output, everything. But that one is a kind of the hobby, and it should be from the components what we can afford, what we can buy, with no special skill for the programming. Look what happens with ZX Spectrum next. Now they're changing FPGA because the previous Spartan 6 is not available, or the lead time is nearly 2 years. Every who's making on the FPGAs, I work for international company, and we have facing issues with the availability of FPGAs, what we use in our products. So I think FPGA is brilliant. However, for the normal user, if someone costs, let's say the FPGA cost a year ago about $10 or $20, now cost $100.
The thing is, if you look at eFinix, they're a Chinese FPGA manufacturer, and they're actually the ones I'm using now. And you can actually get the things at a reasonable price.
Yes, but I'm looking from as well my professional world. We have some issues with the Chinese makers generally.
Oh yeah, my professional work was with primarily Altera and some Xilinx, and you're right. I mean, you really want to go with a company you can trust.
Claudius, thank you so much. Oh, Marcel's got a
Welcome.
question. You're gonna have to unmute yourself, Marcel.
Yeah. First of all, first meeting. Hi guys from Montreal.
Cool.
I'm pretty new around here, and I'd like to know your opinion on the Harlequin, because I was thinking of getting one to play with. I already have a 2068 and a few ZX81, and I was on the verge of maybe getting the kit or the full built-in and try it out in Canada. So anyone that could give me some hints in there?
Does anybody else here own a Harlequin? I'm sorry, not a Harlequin. You said a Harlequin or a
Yeah, he wants a
Yeah,
wants a
the
full
Harlequin.
discrete logic replacement, right? Yeah.
So, Marcel, I built 3. One was successful. The other 2 are with Joe. And it uses the same analog to digital chip that Claudius is using on his design, the 8724. The color was a little overdriven, but I don't know if that's a Spectrum thing or if that's a Harlequin thing. And it's you can get like the case and the keyboard and all the other jazz from ZX Renew, I believe. But if I'm wrong, I'll put the correct link in the meeting notes. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool, but it's not a 2068, and mine is sitting in a drawer. So
Yeah, the big thing is too is Claudius, that's his Harlequin is for the 2048 case.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Most of the Harlequins are for the original, rubber keyed, the 16K 48K case. So just keep that in mind.
Hey, Gustavo.
Hi,
You're next.
yes. No, the question is the following. You have a plan to do a board to put inside the 2068 Portugal version to replacement the big brother machine, or that's only stop the design on the 2048?
Well, it's a good question. The size of the board is it's a bit putting me off, because the board, as you know, it's a massive board. It's like a double of this size. I have 5 working Portuguese 2068. Even one what was made in Poland is Unipolbrit one, and they are working. So currently I can't see need for those. Yes, I can do the design, but there was not on my horizon, because typically my heart was with the smallest Timex available.
Hey, Jeff. Okay.
Yes, but yes, the question is, in Americas, we have many users for the original Timex computer. Maybe we have the defective on the main board, we replace all the board and continue with the machine working. Except that it's not made by Timex, it's made by you.
Well, however, bear in mind you have a different SCLD.
Yes.
Because Timex 2000, TS2000 and TS2068 PAL, they are different. It means they need to be redone. In fact, not the CPLD itself, but the older interfacing around. And they could be even more difficult, because we need to, RGB is that one thing, but the order will be maybe changing slightly. There is, I haven't thought about those, but generally for me, Timex Sinclair 2068, yes, a brilliant machine. I have one in a very good condition, but it's like for your side of the pond, is saying, oh, whatever they do in the Europe is a different. We have it, but we stick with the American version. For me, it's interesting. I have it. I use it once or twice, but generally, it's not the machine what my heart is with. If someone wants to redesign the PCB, David got already my email address. If someone wants support, yes, as far as I can, I could support.
Oh yes, but yes, I know, but the Timex, the original, the NTSC version, has a RGB.
Right, that's what he was just saying, Gustavo.
Yeah.
There's some other issues
Right.
that are,
Correct.
you know, make it a bit more.
Well, the North American 2068 had both. Right, it has RGB and it has YUV.
Yes,
Yes,
but
but
in the reality, how many users use these signals on the bus?
the RGB or the, well, a lot of folks used it back in the day. They, would hook up monitors.
Yeah, the YUV
Currently.
outputs are only internal. They
Yeah.
don't come out.
Yeah.
They're not externally accessible. So
I want to give Jeff a chance. Jeff K.
Yeah, real quickly, you're talking about the USB support, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth, but the plus 15 and minus 15 were removed. So there were never any plans to include a RS-232 interface then for talking to other 80s computers of that era?
There was no, because as you said, there is a way moving away of the plus minus 15, because you can use the Max 253. 232 chip, what effectively can work with +5, and you can quite easily generate -5. So you can make a swing slightly different. However, there are numbers of already the modules what you can buy in China, for example, with those chips, and you can stick directly to the AY chip, to the IOs there. So the few projects are already on the internet, they are published. So it's really not the way what I wanted. I wanted to simplify, because this day is going to RS-232. Anyway, we end up with the translation to the USB.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, are you familiar with the 2050 modem that Timex almost put
Vaguely
out?
from that, when you published the ROM disassembly,
Yeah.
that other book, I think it kind of mentioned the 2050, and I wasn't aware of it before I saw that other book that you published.
So Timex contracted with this company called Westridge to build a modem, right? And it has an Intel 8251, which is a USR chip in it, right? And Timex went out of business or left before they could actually ship any of these things. And Westridge ended up being bought by Anchor Automation, the other modem, one of the other modem companies in the 80s. And somehow these things ended up in the hands of folks like Stuart at Zebra and Sunset Electronics and all kinds of places. People ended up getting 2050 modems and using them, but then there were also theoretically defective 2050s that a bunch of folks got and turned into RS-232 ports, because it's 90% there, and the voltage conversion, I think, was done on that device, not within the computer itself.
No, I appreciate that. Like I say, it's a very cool project. It's very neat. So I appreciate this.
Yeah. Thank you, Claudius. Does anybody else have questions for Claudius, or would you like to chat about other things? Oh, there's Ada. Yes, Ada. Lay it on us. You're gonna have to unmute.
Thank you. Hi, Claudia. Nice work. Can you, or do you have any intention to put HDMI video capability on that board and removing non-HDMI video parts?
I know what you're coming from. No, the reason why, because HDMI is licensed. Yes, you can build something. However, if you want to resell it, you can do only one device per buyer if you want to avoid any licenses. So everybody is doing slightly differently. Like David, you did the kind of the RGB converted to Ziga cable, and later on using external HDMI device, effectively being license free from HDMI.
Yes.
And to be honest, HDMI is quite modern. It's not back to the what we are talking about 8-bit computers. And as well, there are few projects what can be attached directly to the expansion board, like TK Pi from Victor Trucco. And as well, what you're using Raspberry Pi. Effectively, in the whole Raspberry Pi, you can fit probably 10 ZX Spectrum and Timexes together. So as far as these days, composite output is still available in the many of the, even the modern TVs. And RGBs, sometimes they are available, and the rest just a converter if someone use externally. I think is the way what the kind of the retro computing still can be used.
Thank you.
And kind of getting back to Gustavo's, making a board to fit into the 2068 case. I mean, your pal, or I guess Mark's, was it Mark that developed it? Anyway, whoever developed that SCLD chip, that's basically the 2068's SCLD chip, correct? From the Portugal version. So it could be put into a PCB that would fit into the 2068's case, but like I said, it's somebody would have to do the development on it and get it to, I don't know how much such a big board would cost. I mean, even a bare board. I mean, it probably could be simplified quite a bit in modern terms because, there's a lot of discrete components right on the 2068 board, a lot of resistors, capacitors, things like that on there that we may be able to simplify, but I don't see why it wouldn't be possible to do that. Obviously, it's the same SCLD as used in the Portugal 2068, which has pretty much all the capabilities, right, that the American version has. The cartridge port, the joystick ports, the sound chip.
Unfortunately, cartridge port is different.
Oh, is it on the TC 2068? The cartridge,
Yes.
well, the cartridge ports. We know it's physically.
No, it's not. It's not only the physically, as well the few signals which you have available there. They are not available in the European version, in the Portuguese version, and as well they are few swap over, and the meaning is slightly different. We're talking about 1 or 2 connectors there. I know because I designed a few cards for Timex, like that one. What you have already the ROM from ZX Spectrum, you have AY chip, you have a Camstone joystick, and you have audio output, and that one works only with the Portuguese one. So they are differences. Unfortunately, they are not like for like.
Interesting.
Okay, so Mark's SCLD is not a direct replacement for the 2068 then?
No.
Is what you're saying?
No, it's not for American one. It's for the European one. To make the European one will be probably for me the first step, because I can salvage something or strip the board because I have a few machines.
So, Claudius, I'm curious about your cartridge, and do you have any documentation about the 2068's or the TC 2068's joystick port, cartridge port?
Yes, there is a schematic available on the one of the Polish website. It's unfortunately scanned one.
Okay.
With a few markups. If I can share the screen, let's maybe I show
you
the kind of the documentation what we are dealing with in the Europe. So you'd be a bit surprised.
Well, the reason I ask is I know that I think Stuart bought TC 2068 Spectrum cartridges and shaved off the top because there's a physical size difference, and sold those, and they worked apparently for us. And I don't think he made any changes to the what the connector or anything.
No,
In
the small difference is more higher, the cartridge for the Portuguese version. And I don't remember if the IORQ or one of the signal was removed
Oh, okay.
because I used the chip select ROM to replace the ROM replacement. Or
Okay.
bank enable, I don't know, one of the signal is different.
I will show you if the computer allows me. I don't know if you can see my screen now.
Yes, we see your screen.
So that one is a schematic diagram for the Timex Computer 2068, the Portuguese one.
So Claudius, we're seeing your file finder, not
Not
not an actual file.
Oh well, why it's not showing? It's on the correct screen.
Did you show your desktop?
Which one is showing? New share.
Does not happen on the Timex machine.
There we go. Now we got a schematic.
So you have the spectrum bus, what they call it in the Timex machine. So effectively, whatever you have on the middle section, except two connectors on the side, and as well the 3 connectors on the back, 6 connectors on the back. The middle is compatible with the ZX Spectrum. So anything what was related and specific for Timex were thrown away, like XROM and the bank-enabled signal on the side, and as well the RGBs, bright and the C-Sync is on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
This one is what you have. The difference is definitely it's there, ROM CS and MEMDIS, what you don't have.
Nope, that's right.
And there is something else in the other position. I don't remember now, but I went through this. That one is as well the schematic with my markups, as you can see when I did some trace checking. As you can see, it's the quality what we're typically having.
Yeah.
That one is brilliant, but I show you the other one. When we really struggle to have anything visible. That one is a Timex Computer 2048, the scan of the original documentation.
And Claudius, I have a question regarding the machine selling in Europe. One of the models I have inside a new chip is 8255. Maybe I use a Centronic port. I don't know if it was in Poland or in what country. Remove one joystick port and add a parallel port there.
Yes, it was machine what effectively shared. It was Polish, a joint venture company, the end of the 80s, beginning of 90s. It was called Unipolbrit. So it was United States, Poland, and Britain. It was the joint venture company. They bought the numbers of the PCBs and the cases from Timex Portugal. In the exchange, we trade the monitors for the Timexes. And those machines used to have the removed one port on the right-hand side, and they installed as you said, the kind of the Centronic ports, the equivalent, using the 8255 chip. And it was as well quite nasty board underneath. I have this machine.
Oh, okay. But the question is the following, because I never resolved at this point. The handle of this port are integrated on the operating system or just only used as a program?
Unipolbrit machine have got modified ROM.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if I have a manual for those. However, documentation is not available. So we did a number of the things in the Polish forum. Recently, even we recreated the schematic of the Timex FDD 3000, the large board when you have 2 Motorola chip, because as well from the stance we draw it completely. So
okay. The interface for the FDD used the Motorola chip was created in Poland. That's
no.
good.
It was created
No.
by in Timex.
Ah.
However, we redraw the schematics because there is
Okay.
no documentation available. To be honest, whatever Timex did, there was a deal between the Portuguese government and the British government that it was in the time when the Alan Sugar bought Sinclair. Effectively, all the assets from R&D Timex Portugal went to Sinclair's, and Timex stopped making the boards and as well all the computers, even for the Sinclair and themselves. It was about 1987, 1988. There was a government level done deal, and after those, all the factories were shut down. All the documentations were handed over to Sinclair, and these days we don't know if it was scanned or digitalized anyway, and probably in some archives. So whatever we have from the different people, what can find in the lofts. And bear in mind, mainly the Timex R&D department, probably these persons are quite mature age, or possibly they are not available anymore, even the contacts with them.
Claudius, I want to
okay.
thank you. Gustavo, hang on just a sec. So Claudius, thank you so much for joining us and talking about your project. It sounds like we should have another meeting. We should have you back another time to talk about the Unipole. Brett, Ryan wants to know if there's a website for your project. So can you drop the URL for your GitHub in the chat for everybody? And that'll get preserved on the meeting notes. I want to make sure that we have time for other folks to talk about their projects. I'm particularly curious because we haven't heard from Jeff in a long time about his project. Both the Jeffs, actually.
Thank you. Thank you for all the responses.
Hey, Jeff Burrell, can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Because well, you've got that 2068 behind you with that fascinating looking circuit board. At least tell us.
I've been working away at it as time allows. I got sidetracked on writing a Python program to convert tap files to an audio format that I can spool out and load into my 2068. So as soon as it got to be a real pain trying to transfer software between my PC and my 2068. So I just decided to bite the bullet and write a utility for that.
And so how are you planning on playing those audio files into the 2068?
They go out of, I bought a small USB audio device. So I have that plugged into my hub, and right now I'm using Audacity to just spool it out.
Oh, okay.
I needed to get a audio amplifier, as I forget who mentioned it, but the output of most PCs just doesn't give you enough oomph. So
very cool. Very cool. And just for the sake of catching everybody else up who's not seen prior meetings, can you tell us the bigger picture of what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. I'm designing an FPGA that will do two things. First thing is it will provide better quality video for the 2068. That part is working. It's locked down. It's done. So right now it has the standard all the standard 2068 modes. It has ULA plus capability. I've also included a knockoff of Grant Searle's terminal program so that there's an 80 column display. So when it comes time to do CPM, that'll be there. And there's also a VDP 9918 core in there that I know works, and it's just sort of sitting around. Then there's also an interface to a Raspberry Pi Pico, and I've been working on the software so that it can download software from your PC via a USB serial port. And there's also a port available for connection to a SD card to allow you to load programs from the SD card as well.
Wow. Wow. And you'll have that ready next week?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's any reason to just go ahead and release the video upgrades to the 2068 and essentially leave all this file stuff for when it gets done.
Well, speaking for the people who have, asked for such things for a long time, I would say yes. There's a lot of folks who, really just want that better video, and they're really, everybody's frustrated by the poor video quality of the 2068.
Okay, I mean that's something I could put on its own printed circuit board and release as a as an option.
I think folks would love that. Absolutely love that. Hey, Adam.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? Jeff, so I have a question for you. So are you going to plan to support .p files like the backbit cart does? Because the backbit cart just loads from .p files, so so they load basically instantly rather than having to deal with .tap files or TZX.
Well, I'd use .tap files because, frankly, for either the PC or the Raspberry Pi, dealing with those is trivial. It's almost as fast as using any native format. I'd have to look at the .p files. That would be an option.
But do you really use .p for the 2068? I thought .p's were primarily for the 81.
That's what I thought too.
Oh, excuse me. I've been using the 1000 for the last couple of days, and well, sorry, it is .p. It is, yeah. You're right.
And Jeff's upgrade, yeah. The next step he'll make is he'll make it available for the 1000, right, Jeff?
What, the video?
Yeah.
That's the thing is that the board is basically standalone. It snoops the bus, and so it's possible that the 2060 or that the 1000 could get upgraded video.
Well, you mentioned that you have the TI 9918 core, right, or whatever in there, and that reminds me that John Oliger and Fred Nackbauer designed an expansion for the 1000. It was a two-board thing. One board that had the 9918, and the other one I think had some EPROMs on it, to let the 1000 use the 9918 natively. And so, like, part of what they did was rewrite the 1000's EPROM to talk to the 9918 just for the video portion, which sped stuff up too, because the Z80 is no longer generating video.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to promise anything except to say, that since the 2068 bus is a superset of the 1000 bus, it would just require a little bit of modification to the video interface from the bus to deal with that.
Yeah. Very cool. Cool. Thank you, Jeff. I like your background.
I decided to put something other than the back end of my sunroom up.
Well, and Keith has his 2068 for his background, with his his little Oric keyboard and his Amdec disk drives.
Actually, while I'm sitting here, everybody's been talking about a replacement board for the 2068. The really big issue there is the 3.3 volt buses for FPGAs. And so, the real question there is that for the 2068, it wouldn't be hard to put the necessary bus buffers on the output to allow 5-volt operation. The real issue there is that there are some subtleties in dealing with things like bus request and bus grant for the Z80 that makes that a little bit tricky to do. But then the question is, what would be the, I hate to use the term market, but what would be the market for a replacement board for 2068s?
Well,
I don't think there's a big market in the United States, right, for the Timex Sinclair 2068, but I think there's a market for it in Portugal. I think they made a crap ton of Timex Computer 2068s.
hey, Claudius, you have your hand up.
Well, bear in mind that these days we have a plenty of these FPGA implementations and emulators even. However, I haven't noticed the implementation what they have of any Timex is not really the right one. Even if the ZX Spectrum Next, the implementation what is there is effectively adding just the additional graphic modes. They forget completely about MMU, different ports, what are used, even the differences with the generation of the interrupt.
Yep. Yep. As a
So
next
it could
owner,
be-
I'm not happy about that, but that's okay.
So yes, there is a niche, but like the recreating a board, what we discussed in my presentation, effectively it's a cost, because to be honest, I made 4 different boards before I was happy with the design. Even if you make them in China, you need to have a deep pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if someone will be like, they can offset some money because got a running business with electronics and doing this per time, brilliant. But for example, I can't afford this. Even if I would like to do so, I can draw the board, but really spending another $100 on the board, what will go to the skip in a week, 3 times, it's already $300 spent.
Yeah, been there, done that, got a lot of t-shirts.
Uh-huh. Hey, Ada. You're gonna have to unmute Ada.
Thank you. Talking about money, since there are still these old Timex Sinclair crazy folks, can we create a fund to encourage all these developers? And if they come up with a product, more power to them. If they don't come up with the product, so we burned individually $100 here, $200 there. But if we could create a fund, I think we could really encourage even the young people to develop stuff. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. Or as Claudius says, fund it out of your very deep or not so deep pockets.
Yeah, I think, the big thing, as far as a board replacement is concerned for the 2068 is, what's really bad on there that you can't replace, right? Everything is through hole except for one part, right? The SCLD. If the SCLD is bad on the 2068 board, you're kind of screwed, right? Although with Claudius and this SCLD replacement, it won't work in the American ones, but it probably should work in the Portugal ones, right? So they could replace it there. But so developing a new board, yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be better to just replace the SCLD and an existing board, right? Because everything else is pretty easily replaced, unless you pull traces when you desolder things. Then that gets a little tough. But
Yeah, the real problem is that trying to find 5-volt operational or 5-volt tolerant logic devices that have the necessary resources to do an SCLD is just, I think it was Claudius mentioned they're like $50-$60 a pop if you can get them.
Yeah.
Yes, is that one. And Carl, it's not the issue. Make it clarify, this SCLD replacement was done by Mark for his Timex Computer 2068, what was in the poor condition. So it's originated already in TC 2068.
Okay.
So
Right.
got all the features, and I haven't tested because all my machines are in the good condition. However, I know I have a few pictures from Mark when he tested in his TC 2068.
Yeah, to be honest, I've got about, I've had, you know, I used to work with, like I said, Art that bought a bunch of Timexes from, you know, when they went out of business. And actually to see failed SCLDs in my experience has been is very, very low. I'm sure they fail, you know, I'm not saying they don't, but I've replaced RAM and, you know, other things on 2068s. I've never replaced or had to not throw one away because the SLD was bad in my personal experience. So, you know, I think the failure rate for those is pretty low.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see that somebody's made one at least for the European version or the Portugal version. It'd be nice for the, you know, to make one for the American version, but of course, you know, the market there's probably even smaller.
Hey, we have about 30 minutes left. Does anybody else want to, jump in and catch us up on what you've been doing or talk about something that you've been doing?
I would like to hear from the new person from Canada. Maybe he can tell us a little bit about himself.
Oh, he left from
Oh, did he?
Montreal.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
that's too bad.
Yeah, I hope he comes back.
Okay, maybe he saw us and that's why he left. He's like, there's
Right,
the Adam
exactly.
guy.
He heard us. He's like, that's enough of that. Jeff, Kay, have you made much progress on your
No, well,
job
like the
stuff?
other Jeff B was talking about being there and like spending money and getting the t-shirt. All I pretty much have to show is I bought a t-shirt, which I appreciate you doing the design. But no, I mean, I'm still piddling away, but I haven't really asked any questions on the group because I haven't really done anything. So that's why I appreciate the Albuquerque group to be an inspiration that yes, there are people that get together in person, get that camaraderie going, and just
Yeah.
kind of do
Yeah.
do projects. So no, I appreciate that. It should give me an incentive to do my stuff, but the last month or so I have not done anything of note. So
I hear you. So and speaking of the Albuquerque group, perhaps the president of the group could catch us up on his learning the 1000 or ZX81.
Who's the president of the group?
That's you.
Oh shit. Well, I've been messing around with the 1000. Yesterday I got in the mail. It was kind of funny. Ryan sent me a text message and I was walking back from the mailbox and I had just gotten the converter for the backbit cart. And I had some company come over yesterday, so I didn't really get to play with it other than trying it out. So this morning I did try it and it works, obviously. I've also been messing around with a really generically called emulator called the ZX81 app, which is really a weird name since it's got app in its title. But that was pointed out to me by Ryan, and I've been messing around with it on my iPad. And it can't load software, so it comes with just some free software that's freely available, and I think is either PD or they've got the rights to it or whatever. But I've been playing a game on there called Alien Mind, and I thought the ZX81 emulation was really good on the iPad, but when I loaded the same game up on my 1000, my 1000's over there, it plays quite a bit slower. So I'm not sure if I'm using a different version of the software or what's going on there. But it's been really helpful. Carl has been doing all this work for us. Ryan gave me this TS1000, which can take back anytime. So it's really nice to be able to have three people in the same room chatting and kind of understanding one another and nerding out, as my wife says. She's like, you guys still nerding out? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, but it's fun. It's great. What do you guys think, Carl and Ryan?
Well, like I said, I'm the hardware guy, right? So I'm the one that's doing all these modernizations of the the Timex 1000 and Ryan's ZX81. So kind of, a lot of you probably have read the posts, but basically, changing the linear regulator out for a switching one, right? That helps get rid of the heat sink and some heat issues. Putting a heat sink on the ULAs, right, which is probably going to not really help. I've read stuff that says, putting heatsink on it doesn't really matter. It's gonna die at some time anyway. But hey, it can't hurt, right? So we put heatsinks on the ULA. We put, Stuart sent me like a care package that has he had a lot of parts in it, but the main thing was some of the composite mods that you know, the ZX8 dash CCB. And I initially, when we put it into Atoms and adjusted the little bitty pots on there, we got it working really well. And then we put it together and loaded 3D Monster Maze, and it looked like it was tearing. It was pretty crappy video. So I don't know what happened there with that, but being that I put the board inside the modulator case, well, you can't adjust it anymore. You have to take it apart.
Well, also,
Right.
Carl, remember it changed. It worked with some games and not others. Like it would tear depending on whatever game was being used. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's really boils down to the pixel clock. I mean, if you look at the schematic for that thing, it's kind of a unique way that it's doing its you know, video conversion. But in any case, what I ended up doing is relocating that board. I took the channel 2-3 switch out, right, of the board, and I lined up the pots so that you could actually get to them through that channel 2-3 switch cutout, right? So that way you didn't have to take it apart, and you could still adjust it for, you know, different monitors, or if you ever needed to adjust it, you could, right? So, and I didn't want to, well, I was originally going to put it like under the keyboard and drill a couple of holes so that you could get access to it, but I mean, why not? I mean, the hole's already cut in the case, that way you don't have to modify it anymore. And the other thing is, I think tomorrow I'm actually getting some boards for, if you ever go to, I think it's zx.zigg.net, zx.zig, and he put out a great video on the ZX81 video conditioning. That's what it's called. And he goes through with the oscilloscope and shows what the signal looks like without the back porch. He developed a little circuit that uses the 555 timer, right, to create the back porch. Somebody, you know, made a KCAD, you know, Gerbers and everything. So I just ordered them from JLC PCB, which was kind of talking about that earlier. But anyway, they come tomorrow, and I've already got the parts for it. So I'll throw, you know, 1 or 2 of those together. I've got Ryan's third 1000. So I plan on putting it in that in addition to using the ZX8 CCB. So I can kind of get an idea of, you know, how both work in the same machine. I'm not sure what Claudius is showing there. Looks like he's got a 2068 with the CLPD in there.
I think he was showing a power thing. Claudius,
Yeah, it looked like a power supply, the switching power supply replacement.
Okay, so Carl, you are using the especially you have American ZX81s and TS1000. They used to use the ULA, which have got already the back porch, because there were the edition 2C210. So you don't need any special conditioning. And as well, the ULA, that one generated already the 60 frames. If you remove the one of the resistors F30, you will have a 50 hertz frame. So you speed up about 30% of the machine quite easily.
Right.
So to make the component video out, you just need a transistor buffer. You don't need any special feature like that one. What is this NE555 conditioner? What is for ZX81? What can be fitted inside the modulator case? Is exactly the size for the mod. I don't know if you can see. So you need to. I did a modification of Timex Sinclair 1500 using just a transistor. I will publish maybe on the group the schematic, what I did.
Okay.
It was really the 20 minutes modification. We were talking as well about the Timex 2068. So that one is a European version. So as I said, the board is massive. Don't look what they're sticking inside. It's adds on for 128K RAM, which doesn't work quite well. That one is removing the black, the bright from the black, because this machine got the same flow what is in the TS American 2068. So it's 16 colors instead of having 15 colors.
Okay, so that's a Portuguese That's a Timex
Yes.
Computer 2068. Yeah,
Yes.
because you got an 85 date code on there, so that's pretty late.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Uh,
so you actually have a bright. There's actually a bright output on that 2068 SCLD. So we don't
Yes.
have that on the American ones, unfortunately.
Yes. So, and as well, recreating the SCLD for American ones. Yes, they could additional feature using a mark SCLD. So effectively remove this AYV component video completely, make it slightly different and make RGB and your output of 15 or 16 colors if someone wants. And you can say it's much less of the screening and as well the EMC tests were done by the Portuguese, because all the American machines are typically painted internally. Metallic paints are everywhere. Everything is screened. So that one they are not. But the size of the machine, yes, is exactly the same. Even the ROM chips are exactly the same.
Right. That's why I'm saying, I know, because I have a TC2068 and I also have a TC2048, and the SCLDs that are inside of them are identical, right? You look on the 2048 one, it says, PAL TS or TC2068 on the on the SCLD chip.
Well, our American SCLDs say
TS2000.
2000.
Right. The American ones are different.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying the internal. Got it. Of the other.
Right.
Portugal.
Yeah. The American SCLD is unique to the American one, and the Portuguese one, they kind of redesigned it, like I said, and it has RGB and it has bright.
Yep.
Right. Whereas the American SCLD, it has both. It has RGB and it has component video, but no bright output pin.
Yeah.
Plus, obviously, the American one uses the switching regulator. The TC2068 does not. It uses all linear regulators, so they get rid of that problem. Well, it's with the hiss, right? The American 2068 always had that that audio hiss that you could hear. Well, some people can hear it better than others, but in
Carl,
any case, go ahead.
Carl, yes, this is Gustavo. A question: when you set the bright, you modify the gate or the signal in analog part. You don't need the pin to do that, because the level of the video in analog is changed, but not in the TTL signals.
Well, the problem with the American 2068 is the RGB outputs don't have any kind of bright component. They didn't put that in when they designed that SCLD. And so the bright only really comes out of the component video. And so, that's kind of,
composite video, you mean?
Well, it's component inside.
Yeah.
It's YRU, it's component video inside. It's similar to what the TI 9928 uses. The 18, the 18 is the North American version that's using the TI 994A, and that has a composite, and but doesn't put out component. The European 994As, they use the 9928 or the 9929 chip, and that actually puts out component video. Right. And that's what that TMS-RGB board is designed to convert to RGB.
Yep.
Right. And that's kind of what I need to get around to that, but I've got a couple of those boards, and then I got to build them, but they're all surface mount parts and they're tiny, and I got the stencil and all that. But anyway, that was an attempt to get, the component video out of the American 2068 so that we could actually get the bright colors right out of it. And so that's kind of the nice thing about the Portuguese units is they have the bright pin right there. It's easy to hook up to a monitor, because a lot of monitors at that time had RGBI, right? RGB intensity, that's the bright, right? They had RGBI input. So there you go. The 2068 in Americas, we can't get that signal. It's internal to the SCLD, and there's no way that we can actually, pull that out separately so that we can use it with our RGB monitors here in America, right? So there's, and I know David also sent me a little board. I have to finish populating it out that also takes component video and converts it to RGB.
In theory. I have another
In theory.
I have another
Right.
one to send you, and I have to go back into my email and dig out the other person I need to send it to.
And so all this was in trying to get better component video out of the 2068 with Bright, right?
Yeah.
Because we obviously have the RGB things that we have now. David has one, and I think Superflow also made his, which is
Yep.
basically the same thing. You're just bringing the RGB out to a mini DIN 9 that goes to the Sega Genesis converter, but there's no Bright, right? The Bright doesn't work on there, so we're
Which
trying
is
to
actually okay, Carl, because when I load up Spectrum software, like almost all the Spectrum software, for whatever reason, it uses the bright black and the black. And so the screens and the games look really strange. And so I don't mind actually losing the colors from a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I lose with the extra 7 or 8 colors.
Well, and that brings up a good question, because the 2068 can't put out Bright, even though you've got it going through a twister board and the RGB that's coming out of the SCLD and the 2068 hardware to begin with, there's no Bright. So I don't know how, I did see that when we were playing that one game where the bright black is, gets, as the character's moving around, it gets blacked out.
Right.
But it's
exactly.
bright, but I'm not sure how you would consider that bright, because the RGB output from the 2068 is not making a bright. We're not getting, so I'm not sure how that artifact is happening on that case, in that
Magic.
case.
Magic.
Well, something's going on there, but I don't have the cycles
I see
to figure
Claudius
that out.
has had his hand up for a bit.
Yeah, Claudius, tell us.
So
Oh, okay.
maybe it's because not have 40 pins on the SCLD.
It's not
The
there.
pin
It's not there on the SCLD. Claudius, you
is
had a,
out. Yeah.
But if you would like to have all the colors on the HMI, please have a look on the TK Pi project, what was done in Argentina, in Brazil, I think, a couple years back. It's sniffing the data bus effectively on the extension port and recreating the generation of the signal what ULA is doing.
similar to what Jeff Burrell is doing. With
Yes, so that one is using Raspberry Pi and giving the RGB output. So that one can give you possibly the bright information. The other way would be trying to recreate the bright from the component video signals, what you have on TS2000. So SCLD generate RGBs, TTL levels, do the differential components, and you will be converting back to the RGBs.
Yeah, that's what these, like the TMS -RGB project, same thing. It takes component video and converts it to RGB. And so that would preserve the bright colors. I'm presuming I don't know anybody that's actually built one and tried it out, but it should, in theory, preserve the bright, because that's what's coming out of that component video, out of the TS2000 ULA.
As Adam would say, we have just more than 10 minutes left. Was there anything that anybody else wanted to jump in on? Joe? You're good? Okay. Rich?
No, I have a question. If we're not going to wrap it up, for maybe just anyone here who's I'm always interested in hearing how people are using their real hardware, or even just emulation. Like I was saying, I was using the ZX81 app on my iPad, and it came with some free software, and it's been really interesting to dive into that. So, and it's also free, the emulator. So, or maybe it was 99 cents or something, but it was practically free if it wasn't free. So I recommend someone try that out. It works pretty good if you have an iPad, and yeah.
And it works on your phone too, because I've had it on my
phone does it? Okay.
For a couple years now.
Yeah, I actually tried not an emulator. I tried a demo called Metropolis, which actually is it just showed, the movie Metropolis from 1920s or whatever. It does a really high res screen, really high res. It does a high res fake screen on the ZX81. I'm gonna try that up on my Timex 1000 this week and see how it looks on an NTSC television.
Adam, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Regarding the CX81 or TF1000 machine,
Mhm.
Do you know if exists 2 or 3 versions of the ROM?
Oh,
Because
that's something to ask Carl. That's
oh,
Gustavo, you're asking the man who just got it, what, 2 weeks ago?
yeah, not yeah, last weekend really, yeah.
no, okay. No,
Yeah,
regarding this,
Gustavo, yeah,
yeah,
as far
yeah.
as I know, there's only, I think there was like an early version of the ZX81 ROM that they had some bugs in.
Yep.
And that they fixed and they patched it and so that's 2 versions, right? And then the 1500, they changed it a little bit to check for the cartridge adapter, right? So that it would auto start the cartridge.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's the only ROMs that I know that are for the ZX81 1000 line.
Didn't they, Carl, didn't they screw up, make another bug when they made the 1500 ROM?
No, because I think that they have a problem with the printer. When you try to print the decimal number, maybe the operating system fail and print the letters in the middle.
Yeah, there is a bug in the as you said, and it's with really small numbers.
Yeah, correct. Exactly.
Claudius, I bet Claudius is going to tell us the right answer.
And I think that this problem was solved on the 1500 machine, because I never use CX81 or 1000 machines. I start in the beginning with the 2068. That was my first machine.
Yeah.
Now I am working on that, but I'm not.
Well, I think, like I said, there was an early version of the original version of the ZX81 ROM that had the bug in it, but I know they found that and they fixed it at some point.
Yeah.
I think it was fixed before the 1000 even came out, right? Because that was way later in 82. So I think all the 1000s probably don't have that bug either. So it may be something Adam could try. I don't know what, I'm sure that's documented somewhere. I'm sure.
Well, show me later, we'll talk about it offline.
Yeah. No, the idea is to see the real ROM. I don't know if any in the group has the image ROM for the original TS 50,000, 1500.
1500. Well,
Yeah.
maybe. Hey, Claudius, you had your hand raised a minute ago.
Yes, but the main issue with the ZX81 ROM, the early one, was the ROM couldn't make the few mathematical functions correctly, even the square. So there was a main issue. There is a video somewhere on the YouTube what you can watch. There is a interview with John Grant, who created effectively the ROM.
Oh.
Or there is a podcast. I don't remember. It rings me a bell, but I listened those about a couple years back.
And looking at your hardware, Claudius, that kind of jogs my memory that they put like a transistor or something like that on those ZX81s that had the bug to fix it. There was actually a hardware mod, wasn't there?
No, it was in early Spectrums.
Oh, that was the Spectrum. Okay,
there were 2 bugs.
You're right.
There were 2 bugs.
Right.
The first one was a dead cockroach. What everybody knows there was about the issue, and the second was there was as well with the interrupt requests. It was too harsh, and they tried to using just making an OR gate using a resistor and diode, which didn't work. So finally, they put the fast transistors, and this transistor exists in every ZX Spectrum board from revision 3 up to the revision 6A.
That's right. That was on the Spectrum, right? Because I remember, there was like a cockroach. That's what they called them on.
The cockroach was for the ULA issue, what they have early ULA that was only required for the Series 5000. In the Series 6000, there was no need of the dead cockroach because there was a mistake inside the ULA itself.
Yeah, and luckily Adam's machine, he has the latest ULA so that it does generate the backport. So his video seems to be pretty good. On Ryan's machine, his is a ZX81, right? Which was the date codes in that thing are early 82. So he has the 170 or the 182.
184.
184, right, which does not have the, well, none of them had the backport issue until the 210. So I could get the video to work on his, but it was very, very picky. and we found a little issue when we were trying the backbit cartridge. When the backbit cartridge boots up, it has a splash screen, backbit, whatever, has the version number, and that displays perfectly fine. But then when it goes to the menu, right, for you to pick what you want to load, that's when you get all the tearing, all the the black tearing, which is a pixel clock issue, what I'm looking at. And I think Ryan actually did some more, messing around with that, because I know he said the longer that it's on, the worse that it gets.
Yeah. Well, Evie actually ordered a ZX81 to test this issue because I brought it up in her forums. And so she's going to try to track it down and see if it's the composite mod or what have you. So
Here, I'll show you guys the.
I'm gonna pin your video, Ryan.
So I'm going to plug it in with a back bit on. So we got that there.
ooh, a tape player.
Wow, it looks like a 16K RAM pack though.
It does.
What
Well, 'cause
happens
it
if
had-
you wobble it? Wow, that was. Oh, is this the noise?
Yeah, this is the artifacting that it creates.
Okay.
So now the longer I leave, I did testing, and it seems like the longer the computer is on is what's affecting it. If I let the back bit be cold, but have the computer warm, and then unplug the back bit in, you'll get the noise. It'll still have a lot of noise, and it seems to be as the computer warms up.
What happens if you spray the ULA with compressed air? Really cold compressed air.
I think
Well,
ULA
you-
is dying.
You would have to open it up, and the tails of the keyboard are so short that we don't want to do that.
Okay.
I would advise to buy the ULA replacement. It looks like ULA is dying.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yes.
So Ryan, you should get the VLA 81, and you can be the demonstrator of that.
Well, I have two of them.
Oh,
And I haven't put them in because we're trying to keep these all original, right? Because the BLA 81 is an enhancement. It's not just a replacement, it's an enhancement, right? There's you can do some expansion RAM, right, for high-res graphics. There's some mode switches on there. And of course it fixes the video stuff. So I suppose we could put one of those in Ryan's machine. And I have, like I said, his other one, which has the same ULA, the 184. And I have a back bit. I have the TS1000 adapter, so I can try it on his system. But I was waiting for these boards to come in tomorrow with the 555 timer, because we need to generate the back porch, right? And I just don't really care for the way that the ZX8 CCB that we used in his generates the back porch. If you look at the schematic, they're using logic gates, they're using NAND gates. There's no timer per se, I'm sure they're using an RC thing in there, but some guy even had a thing on the YouTube where he discussed in depth how that thing works, and it's not precise right on the back porch. But Gustavo has his hand up again.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. No, who knows why the CX81 does not support the ASCII code like Spectrum?
Clive Sinclair.
Oh, I not found the reason, because it's all the codes are changed and use the same quantity of tokens or the codes inside the RAM. That's crazy.
It is, yes, that was a huge frustration for those of us who started on the 1000.
Gustavo, I read more
I
years
read.
back. I read more years back than I can imagine that part of the reason was that the codes were selected because of the way the video hardware worked.
Yeah,
Okay, that's why the space is 0. All right. Yeah.
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 Any of these questions like this, I think a lot of them go back to exactly that in order to achieve what they did, there were compromises had to be made, and I don't know the details of that. That would be an interesting thing, but the yeah, I mean, there would have been a reason, because obviously ASCII was well established
Yeah.
back then. So there was clearly reasons. You know, you think, well, then why would you have, why, if you had an entire section of the character set that's inverse, why wouldn't you just have lowercase? Well, that would have been, that the inverse is clearly because you're duplicating the existing uppercase and inverted. Well, that takes only a few bytes to do probably, versus all the extra bytes to store all the lowercase patterns. And there was, you know, probably a combination of reasons in order to get, they said, well, we can't have lowercase just because we need the memory and the ROM. Well, if you don't have lowercase, that leads to, well, okay, well, let's do something else. And then, well, if we don't have lowercase, then we're already not ASCII really anyway. So that's probably what maybe
Well,
led to that.
don't forget too that the ROM in the 81 is packed.
Yeah.
It is full. There is
Yeah.
no
So there
extra
would be no
space.
room
So
for lowercase anyhow. So much less an exclamation point.
well, you know, they always could you just put a 16K ROM in there. I mean, it's not like that address space is I mean, it's used for high-res graphics in some modes, but they could have put a bigger ROM in there. But then now
More
there's
money.
your compatibility. Yeah.
Hey, maybe we can take one more question from Claudius or comment,
Thank
and
you,
then
Adam.
we'll close it up, and David can tell us when the next meeting will be.
Thank you, Adam.
So the one thing you need to remember, the ZX81 was the successor of ZX80, and the original ZX80 got only 4 kilobytes of ROM.
Mhm. That's right.
And so whatever we have in ZX81 is ZX80 plus the slow mode and non-masking interrupts in generator, and that's it in the 4 chips. So because you can quite easily convert any ZX80 into ZX81 with some additional logic and replacing the ROM. Even Sinclair made some kind of the kits for whoever wanted in the 80s. So there was like inherited. So the new ROM, what they created, what was ZX82, what is ZX Spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't a lot of the ROM too in 81 for math? They upped the math capabilities too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the 80 was integer math.
Right.
And
81 was
so,
floating point.
right, but then the hardware was virtually the same. And so that would have been, so other than slow mode, you've got a hardware design that was designed whenever the ZX80 was, which I guess was late 79.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. On that note, we're over time. And I have to run. Now our next meeting is, let me just double check. It's the first Monday of April, April 3rd. And Adam loves to give me grief about this.
What did I do?
We're gonna have Robert Fisher joining us, and Bob, as he goes by, was a teacher, band teacher. He wrote a program for doing keeping track of your grade book and stuff. But he was a Profile 2068 power user to such an extent that he put out his own newsletter about the improvements that he did to the program. And he and Rod Gowan from a company called RMG Enterprises eventually put out a cartridge-based version of Profile 2068 with all these improvements to it. And they were Bob and Tom Woods, who you may remember from a prior meeting, used to correspond a whole lot because Bob was the power user. So that'll be Monday, April 3rd at 9 p.m. Eastern, and cascading across the time zones as it does. For those of us in America, this is not a problem. For those of us in other countries who either do not follow daylight savings time, or whose daylight savings time changes at a different time point in time. All I can say is catch up to America, because we're leading the role in screwing up time zones. That's the best I got.
Well, the other thing is too, they're like at least 7-8 hours ahead of us.
Yes.
So if it's 9 o'clock at night, it's going to be like, 4 o'clock in the morning for them.
Well, Gustavo's in Argentina, and this year, like, if you Google, Argentina and daylight savings time, there's this note about how they're not observing it this year at all. That's some sort of weird, political thing. So, on that note, we'll see you in 2 weeks-ish, maybe a little bit less.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Cool.
15
Thank you.
days.
Cool. Wow. Carl. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. It was a great meeting.
All right.
Thank you, Claudius.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Claudius.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.
All right.